Hello, I'm Ted Gioia, and I'm doing a series of unscripted video talks on subjects related to music and society. Today I want to look at the disappearance of the blues from popular music and ask, is this something we should be concerned with? Do we need the blues as part of a healthy musical culture? Well, the blues has always seemed old-fashioned. Some people will tell you that even when it was new, the blues was old. From the start, people saw this music as a music of tradition, as a music of the past, as a legacy that was given to us by people that came before. But we're now at a juncture when the blues is so old it might even be dying off. The most obvious way of seeing this is just looking at the performers. Almost all of that great generation who brought the blues to the forefront of the music in the 1950s are gone. Probably the only one still thriving now is Buddy Guy, but we've lost B.B. King, we've lost Howlin' Wolf, we've lost Muddy Waters, and even of that next generation, and I'm talking about the rock performers then that embraced the blues, they're reaching retirement age as well. How much longer will we have Eric Clapton or Mick Jagger or Keith Richards? And there doesn't seem to be young musicians willing or capable of stepping into their shoes and operating at the same level, at least, of superstardom and celebrity. We might have a period very soon in which there are no superstar blues musicians. But the disappearance of the blues is more than just a matter of individuals. It's also an issue of sounds. The sound of the blues is disappearing from popular music. It wasn't very long ago when almost every kind of popular music incorporated the blues. I remember back when I was a teenager learning the guitar. The first thing you learned as a guitarist were blues chords. And that wasn't just true for blues players or jazz musicians, but if you wanted to play rock, or if you wanted to play R&B or even country music, you learned these chords. You could turn on the radio and it seemed every hour you'd hear at least one or two pop songs that were based on the blues. But nowadays you can listen to hit radio for a whole year and not hear a single song that uses blues chords. Is this something we should be concerned with? And even when you get into the micro workings of music, you see a disappearance of blues elements. Even those bent notes that were the trademark of the blues are disappearing. If you listen to music nowadays, you hear a tendency among singers to want to hit every note dead center in the middle of the pitch, absolutely in tune. And when they can't do this, they often use auto-tune or these software tools to ensure that every note is spot on. In many ways, this is just an absolute denial of the most important thing we got from the blues, which is the bending of the notes. And then if you look at the harmonies, not only are we losing blues chord changes, but the basic building block of the chord change, an interval known as the tritone, and it sounds like this, is disappearing. The tritone is important because it creates a tension and wants to resolve. A resolution might sound like this. Now that tense interval, the tritone, was the essence of the blue, and it gave a bite to the music. It gave some intensity to the music. It's interesting to note that even the tritone is disappearing from pop songs. If you listen to popular songs nowadays, you'll hear chord progressions like this. It's just a repeated vamp, but I've heard that vamp on many hit songs. One of the things you'll notice is there are no tritones there. The tritone was called the devil's interval by many people because it was so dangerous, it was so dark, it was so powerful. But now it's disappearing. It's actually been the engine of functional harmony for centuries. Can we get rid of it from pop songs and not pay a price? So we look at this and we see a shift in popular music from the blues at every level, the chord changes, the harmonies, the way notes are articulated. and we see that shifting away. Now, I would suggest that this is something we should be concerned with, because the blues is not just a genre. It's actually a way of expanding our musical palette and horizons. I think the best way of looking at the arrival of the blues, which took place about a century ago, is to consider the world before the blues. The blues actually was the first major entry of an Africanized aesthetics into Western popular music. Before that, we were living within this paradigm that had existed in Western music for 2,500 years, and I trace it back to Pythagoras. Pythagoras was the Greek thinker who designed the scales and the tunings that are the foundation of our music today. And what Pythagoras said was every note has to be in tune. You can only use the notes in the scale. Music almost became a kind of mathematics. Now, when the African influence entered into Western music through the blues, it denied this Pythagorean paradigm. And it was exciting because you didn't have to play a note in tune anymore. You didn't have to stick to the notes of the scale. In fact, you could embrace the whole world of sound that didn't exist within the scales of Western music. And that's why the blues is important. It's not just because Muddy Waters had a hit record. It's not just because B.B. King was a great singer. The blues was important because it expanded our musical horizons. And without the blues, you wouldn't have had the great flowering of jazz. Without the blues, you wouldn't have many elements of country music or R&B or soul or pop. And so when I'm concerned about the loss of the blues, it's not just because I like those 12-bar chord changes. I like them, but it's a broader thing. We need the blues sensibility. We need the blues sensibility to take us out of the confines of our music. And I would suggest that losing the blues in music is no different than losing the color blue in painting. It narrows our palette and our perceptions. So we need the blues, not just because the blues is good, but we need it as a key ingredient in a healthy musical culture.